the Brothers Grimm. A man had 7 sons and no daughter, though he longed very much for one. At last his wife gave him hope of another child, and when the child was born it was a girl. There was great joy. But the infant was sickly and puny, so weak that she had to be christened at home. In great haste, the father sent one of the boys to the well for water, and the other 6 went along. They all wanted to be the first to draw water, and in the scramble the pitcher fell into the well. There they stood. They were all afraid to go home. They didn't know what to do. When they didn't come back, the father grew impatient and said, "Those wicked boys have forgotten. They must be playing some game again." He was afraid the little girl might die unchristened, and in his anger he cried out, "I wish they'd all turn into ravens." No sooner were the words spoken than he heard a whirring over his head, and when he looked up he saw 7 coal-black ravens flying away. The parents could not undo the curse, and as they were over the loss of their 7 sons, they were partly comforted by their little daughter, who soon grew strong and healthy and became more beautiful with every day that passed. Her parents were careful not to mention her brothers, and for a long time she didn't even know she had any. But one day she heard some people talking about her, saying she was indeed a lovely child, but on the other hand, she was to blame for the misfortune that had befallen her 7 brothers. That made her very sad, and she went to her father and mother and asked if she had had brothers and what had become of them. After that her parents could keep silent no longer, but they said her brother's misfortune had been God's will, and that her birth could not be held to blame. But day after day her conscience plagued her, and she felt she had to save her brothers at all cost. She knew neither rest nor peace until one day she stole away from home and went out into the wide world in hope of finding them somewhere. All she took with her was a ring in remembrance of her parents, a loaf of bread and a jug of water for when she was hungry and thirsty, and a little chair for when she was tired. On and on she went, farther and farther, until she reached the end of the world. She went to the sun, but it was too hot and terrible, and it ate little children. So she ran away and went to the moon, but the moon was too cold and creepy and wicked, and when it saw the child it said, I smell human flesh." So she hurried on and didn't stop until she came to the stars. They were friendly and kind to her. Each one was sitting on its own little chair, and in the morning Star stood up and gave her a chicken's leg and said, "Without this chicken's leg you'll never get into the glass mountain. That's where your brothers are." The girl took the chicken's leg, wrapped it carefully in a cloth, and went on until she came to the glass mountain. The gate was locked, and she wanted to take out the chicken's leg, but when she unfolded the cloth it was empty. She had lost the gift of the kindly stars. What was she to do now? She was determined to save her brothers, but she had no key to the glass mountain. So the good little sister took a knife, cut off one of her fingers, and put it into the lock. The gate opened, she went in, and a dwarf came up to her and said, "What are you looking for, child?" "I'm looking for my brothers, the 7 ravens." The dwarf replied, "The Lord Ravens aren't home, but if you care to wait for them, come in." The dwarf brought in the ravens' food on 7 little plates, and their drink in 7 little cups, and the little sister ate a bite from each plate and drank a sip from each cup, and into the last cup she dropped the ring she had brought with her. Suddenly she heard a whirring of wings, and the dwarf said, "Here come the Lord Ravens." The ravens were hungry and thirsty, and they went straight to their plates and cups, and one after another of them said, "Who has eaten from my plate? Who has drunk from my cup? A human mouth has been here." And when the 7th got to the bottom of his cup, the ring rolled out. He looked at it, recognized it as his parents' ring, and said, "God grant that our sister may be here, then we are saved." The girl was standing behind the door, and when she heard that wish, she came out, and all the ravens took on human form again. Then they hugged and kissed each other and went happily home. The end.